to the American Idiots Podcast, the show where we take the hottest topics currently dividing our country and we debate them with our diverse group of hosts. So sit back and strap in, as for the next 2 hours we leave no story undebated and no politician will be spared. It's the American Idiots Podcast live on Podcast Network 49, and it begins right now. Good evening, everybody. Wish my camera would focus. I don't know what's going on there, but I am Money Mike Carnahan here, going to be joined pretty quickly by two hosts. Holy crap, two hosts. Tonight here on the American Idiots. Of course, before we bring them in, we want to take care of our housekeeping. So if you're on our Facebook page, go ahead and give us a like. Also, just dropped a new status. If you're interested in joining the panel here, feel free to message the American Idiots Podcast page, and we can work out getting you a tryout and getting you on the air with us if you enjoy talking politics. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the page, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff, so you'll be notified whenever we upload. And if you're listening to our audio-only version, go ahead and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and bring on the one you're used to, the Manny Hispanic. Manny, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing really good. Got the game queued up, ready. What, about 30 minutes? We'll be watching some national championships going on.
Who you got?
UNC, man. North Carolina.
They avenged our loss, so I got to go with the Tar Heels.
Definitely. So,
well, first off, before I go ahead and bring on the other distinguished member of our panel, did you watch either night of WrestleMania?
No, sir. No.
Oh,
I've seen clips and stuff, but no. Once you're in the wrestling business, it's not as exciting to see. Yeah.
Like me and my buddy Toomer last night, we were watching it, and and to give you a full explanation, it ruins it from the aspect of you can hear people calling spots now.
Yeah.
You can see people calling spots. You know where they are in the match. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like knowing how the magic tricks work.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not as impressive anymore. So
I did thoroughly enjoy, so I watch his podcast every day, but I did thoroughly enjoy Pat McAfee. That was a lot of fun, watching that dude get up there and do his thing, especially, hearing the backstory that he wanted to do it since he was a little child and all of that. So
right.
That was great, but it looks like we got our other host, Matt Hawk, here is on the phone, so I'm going to go ahead and skip him. And we'll bring him on when, obviously, he gets more availability. But definitely, it's been a pretty quiet news cycle over the past couple of weeks. It's crazy.
I don't know if we said past couple of weeks. Last week we were on pretty good with stuff that was going on.
Absolutely.
Now this week has seemed kind of slow. Although I sent you a bunch of stuff that I guess you didn't like.
Well, no, I liked it. It's just it's working its way into other stuff that we're going to talk about. Like how I did that. Of course, a lot of it's going to fit in with Russia. So, it is what it is. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and bring on the third member of the panel tonight, Mr. Mad Hawk. Mad Hawk, you got to unmute yourself. I don't know if did I unmute you? Oh, I can't unmute.
There we go. I think I got it now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
All right, there I am. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing? Thank God the races are finally over.
Are they?
Well, they're still supposed to go for another month, but this weekend was like the be-all, end-all of it. The Derby
I'll
weekend.
avoid that side of the town when the races are in, so I usually don't know when they're over.
Yeah, well, I decided to just go ahead and insert myself right into the middle of it all. So.
Well, that's always fun. That's always fun, man. I tell you, I'm surprised to see. I thought you'd be all like bones and stuff because they've been working you to the bone.
I mean, yeah. It's I'm glad to see it kind of slow down a little bit, but I've been enjoying it for a while. It's been a good run.
How's the hiring process going? You need help in both places?
No, not both places. Still at the taxi company. We can always use drivers, dispatchers, phone ops, everything. I mean, business.
So anybody out there that is looking for a job, contact us. We'll hook you up.
There you go.
We'll get you the details. Absolutely.
Trying to help, Mad Hawk.
Well, while we got a break here in Mad Hawk, we'll go ahead and jump into things. So the first big story that happened over the past 24 hours, the past week, was the signing of the Emmet Till Antilynching Act. And my thing with this, I wonder if it's a little too late for this. And I also want to go into the actual punishment if you're convicted of the crime for the bill. So we have a story here from ABC News on this.
All right. This is law. Okay, yay. It was over 100 years ago in 1900, a North Carolina representative named George Henry White, the son of a slave, the only black lawmaker in Congress at the time, who first introduced legislation to make lynching a federal crime. Hundreds of similar bills have failed to pass. Over the years, several federal hate crime laws were enacted, including one I signed last year to combat COVID-19 hate crimes. But no federal law expressly prohibited lynching, none, until today. Emmett's mother, his mother, demanded that her son be sent home so that his funeral in Chicago could be an open casket. Here's what she said: "Let the people see what I've seen." America and the world saw what she saw. Emmet Till was born nearly 40 years ago, after the first anti-lynching law was introduced. Although he was one of thousands who were lynched, his mother's courage to show the world what was done to him energized the civil rights movement. Exactly 100 days later, Rosa Parks was arrested on the bus in Montgomery. Her statue sits in my office. She said, "I thought of Emmet Till, and I couldn't go back. I thought of Emmet Till, and I couldn't go back." Dr. King often preached about, quote, the crying voices of little Emmet Till screaming from the rushes of the Mississippi. To the Till family, we remain in awe of your courage to find purpose through your pain.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC.
George, shut the hell up. Jeez, why do you always got to come in at the end of my videos? Of course, that came from ABC News. But, Manny, when you look at this, so I want to read what the actual punishment is for this, and then we can get into, like, the reasoning for the bill and what have you. But this bill makes lynching a federal hate crime offense. Specifically, the bill imposes criminal penalties, a fine, a prison term up to 30 years, or both, on an individual who conspires to commit a hate crime offense that results in death or serious bodily injury, or that includes kidnapping or attempt to kidnap, aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to commit aggravated sexual abuse, or an attempt to kill. There's one word that is specifically mentioned, that is specifically missing from that, and that's something about, I don't know, lynching somebody. And also 30 years? Are you kidding me? That's it? Like, again, this is something that I'm assuming that this is like an add-on to like murder charges or attempted murder charges.
Right, right. And my question would be, what is the penalty for a hate crime?
I don't know. Hold on. That's a good point. So let's see. Related bills. So I'm on Congress.gov. So this is what I'm trying to look here. Emmet Till Antilynching Act. That's the same fucking bill. Typical. What's the word I'm looking for? Sentence for federal hate crime. Typical is 10 years. That's depressing. But in 2022, knowing that we have murder charges, knowing that we have all these other things, this seems like another empty ploy by Democrats. I'm going to be honest with you. Joe hasn't done anything to move the ball on the inequality in this country since he took office. I feel like this was his, well, I'm going to toss this out there and they can say I did something.
Right.
I feel like that's all this is. This is very empty to me.
That's exactly what it is, because he even boasted that himself, that this is the first one that's ever been there.
Right. Besides, and mind you, he said he referenced one that he signed last year that was a COVID-19 hate crime. What the hell were people coming out beating the hell out of people who had COVID-19 and I missed it? Like
I think it was the people that refused to mask up and stuff like that.
That's a hate crime?
According to him, from what I'm gathering.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is being done here that just literally, like, again, appreciate the thought,
right?
But did you accomplish anything with this? Again, the name of the bill is the Emmet Till Antilynching Act. Did I say in the description of what crimes committed fit the Emmet Till Antilynching Act? Did I say the word lynching?
Never.
Lynching?
Not once. No.
Like this is politics at its finest, I guess.
And this kid died how long ago?
Till died in the early 1900s, I want to say. Hold on. I will tell you exactly how. No, excuse me. He died in 1955.
Okay. Because I was going to say in the 60s we still had some issues, but I'm wanting to say that we haven't had a whole lot of lynching issues since the 70s and 80s. I mean, I may be wrong. I don't recall seeing a bunch of stuff in the history books, and that may be, the small school that I went to.
True.
Maybe in California they teach a lot more about lynching.
I mean, maybe, but again, this does nothing to say, I don't know. He brought it up in the State of the Union. Train police forces better to fucking deal with minority communities. Anything like that. It's insane the lack of knowledge and the ability of this administration, because he'll get a bump in approval for this, I have a feeling, to paint this as
by design
this big win for minority communities, when again it's something that is minor. 30 years, that's ridiculous. It doesn't even reference the lynching that is the name of the bill. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Mad Hawk, I mean, maybe you know something I don't about this, but it seems like a lot of smoke and mirrors by the Biden administration so he can claim that he's finally putting some action behind his words on the campaign trail.
I mean, yeah, unfortunately, I've been so busy. I've been kind of out of the loop on a lot of things. So I had heard about it passing. I didn't really study much on it because I thought that's why we had a law where it was like illegal to murder people.
Right.
But I kind of always thought it was against the law to lynch anybody. Like, I never knew we needed to make a new law for it now. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of heard what y'all were saying. Sorry, I had to drop out there for a
You're
second.
fine.
But yeah, it like you said, smoke and mirrors. I mean, I think with everything else that we have going on right now, for them to come out and say like, "Hey, we passed this bill," where it's against the law to lynch anybody now. It's kind of like, okay. I mean, yeah, thanks for making it a law, but I think there's other things we need to worry about
And
besides that.
that's one thing, Mad Hawk, is to say, hey, we've got a law that's going to protect against this stuff now. The way he came out and said it wasn't just, hey, we've got this law now, we're going to start following. It's, hey, look, I made this law. There's never been a law, and so I did it right now. Look at me, guys.
Right, exactly.
He took a
And I
point.
mean,
He
with the
took
whole
a play
history
out
of
of
Joe,
Trump
like,
with that one.
you haven't done much, so I get it. Like, yay, congratulations, you did it on your own. But really, like, it's kind of like, me going to the bathroom and being like, hey, everybody, I wiped my own butt today. Like,
Right?
big deal.
I mean, it's one of those things that, okay, yes, I understand. They probably see the terrible approval numbers. They see all of this, and maybe and this was just something to kind of boost the numbers. But here's the thing. Again, people are eventually going to see this law. People are eventually going to take the time to look at this law, and they're going to see that there's no substance to it, and you're not going to get any sort of boost. I mean, this is insanity. I guess would be a good word at its finest here for the Biden administration, and I just don't understand. Maybe this may have worked in the '90s when people didn't have access to the internet.
And I don't think it's insane. I think it's people that have hyped him up to the point of saying, hey, this could improve your numbers.
Well, and I don't think that the bill itself is insane because, yes, it's awesome that we have something with his name on it and so on and so forth. I just wish that what carried Emmet Till's name would actually, have some substance behind it. And, I don't know, actually pay tribute to the man by, doing something about the way and manner in which he was murdered. And unfortunately, it doesn't. It just
right. And I'd like to see, who's the first officer that gets to come under this.
That's true.
If anything, the police force seems to be the ones that are conducting most of the lynchings.
If that ain't a damn mouthful, that's certainly true. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how this is carried out going forward. But again, I mean, one of the weirder things that I said in that description, sex crimes. What does sex crimes have to do with Emmet Till and an anti-lynching act?
I'm not sure what sex crimes has to do with lynching. I don't recall a lot of anything being read about lynch mobs raping their victims.
Exactly. Again, I don't mind having a federal hate crime against, rape and all of that, but give it its own bill. This needed to be in effect. This needed to be a tribute to Emmet Till, and unfortunately, it fell massively short to me.
Right.
It's rather depressing that's where we are with these.
And hopefully, it is like you were saying that it's on top of other crimes. If somebody is assaulted, they can apply this to it to beef up the sentencing. If somebody is killed, they can try them for murder and add this on to beef up that sentencing. So,
absolutely,
maybe it's a good way for these people that are trying to plead down to manslaughter
to keep them
to actually face a little more time than what a manslaughter charge would carry.
Yeah, and that's one of the weirder things that one of these days we need to talk about is how quickly the government is to hand out these plea bargains.
Oh, yeah.
That's a bigger conversation because it's a rather depressing one. But this must have been the week of laws that just make me scratch my head for a need for them. But next up, we got the Don't Say Gay legislation in Florida. And we have a story on that from CBS News.
Reactions are pouring in over a new Florida law that bans instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade classrooms.
Yeah, President Biden has denounced the measure as hateful. The Walt Disney Company has vowed to help repeal the law. Now, some teachers are worried about the impact the legislation could have on their students. In fact, one educator called it a, quote, blatant attack on education. David, welcome. As you know, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed this bill into law on Monday. It'll take effect in July. But first, explain what the law does and the repercussions some people might face if they break it.
What the law does, in effect, is make schools less safe for marginalized, minoritized students who already are saying that they don't find schools and too often they don't find communities to be safe. Students who identify as members of the LGBTQIA plus community, and students who otherwise want to empathize and show compassion for members of the LGBTQIA plus community. The bill also impacts teachers, educators, again, who might be members of the community or who not, but who will be further constrained with regard to the ways that they can support or even talk to their students about our reality. It is our reality that as long as there have been people, there have been queer people. What the bill also does is restate rights that parents already have based on the 14th Amendment. And so what it's designed to do is to use fear to encourage people to show up to vote during this midterm season. And it's also designed to target our children who didn't ask to be born and who deserve to be safe and protected, especially in the spaces we force them to move through by law, including schools.
David, you talk about our reality, and I have sort of a practical question. And, if a child were to ask their teacher, why does Johnny have two dads or why does Sally have two moms? Which is a very, realistic scenario these days. How is the teacher supposed to respond to a question like that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I taught kindergarten and third grade in New York and know that for a lot of elementary school educators, helping young people make connections to the world around them is our primary responsibility. And what this bill would do is mean that I, as an educator, would be forced to silence this student or to shame them into not asking the question and contribute to the bigotry that exists in a world where we don't acknowledge people who don't show up in ways that are traditional or what we call normal. Our reality is that people live in different ways. There are children who have one parent. There are children who have four parents. There are children who have primary relationships with their grandparents. And it's important for educators to show up in ways that are not only competent but compassionate to help young people make sense of the world that they've been invited into.
David, what message do you think the governor is sending by signing this legislation?
The governor is joined a number of other political bullies in sending a few messages. One is that they're putting politics over people and that it is more important for them to turn out voters who are supportive of white supremacy, who don't want to have conversations about history or our reality to the previous point. And he's saying that he cares about them over children who didn't ask to be born. To my second point, there's a lot of gaslighting to suggest that kids don't show up with queer identities or questions about queer realities. And in a world where we know, based on data, that children who are members of racial as well as sexual minority groups are experiencing suicidal ideation at increased rates. They're facing increased mental health challenges. They're being pulled and pushed out of schools into sex trafficking, into the school to prison pipeline. What he's saying is that he doesn't care about some of our children, that some of us are disposable. And I want to be clear, we're talking about Governor DeSantis in Florida, who is also auditioning to run for president. But there are more than 42 states in this country have introduced these kinds of bills, bills that target censorship around history and or that try and prevent conversations about queer identities, contributions, or histories.
All right, really, really quickly, David, can you tell us if you think that this law could survive legal challenges, and if it makes it all the way up to the Supreme Court, would it be upheld?
Based on the current composition of the Supreme Court, absolutely that's possible, and we are actively working to ensure that there are roadblocks put up at every step of trying to advance this legislation. It is most important for us to understand that parents already have the rights that the bill purports to provide them Our children are often inculcated in the privileged ways that we think about expectations around sex and gender, sometimes before they're born. Think about gender reveals in the way that we assume that girls are going to like pink and boys like blue. And so it's really important for us to do work to support all of our children while we also try and forestall the codification of this bill in ways that will impact schools more.
David Johns, thank you so much. We appreciate your perspective.
Thank you for having me.
So I have a problem on both sides, and it comes down to the same phrase. How often does little Johnny come up and ask you in kindergarten through third grade, why does little Bobby have two dads? Or why does little Susie have two moms?
Why does it got to be that way? Why couldn't little Susie have two dads?
Maybe. True. But it is another bill that has no purpose, number one. Number two, for the gentleman that was speaking, it's the same question. He talks about the suicide rates. Am I missing a large spike in kindergarten through third grade kids committing suicide or trying to attempt to take their own life?
No, but what they're trying to paint is that because it wasn't handled early on like that, later on down the road, it does turn into a suicidal issue.
I don't think so, though.
Neither do I. I'm just telling you the way they're trying to paint it.
True, but
don't argue with me, Mike.
If this conversation,
I'm the one that sees what they're doing.
If
I'm just explaining it to you.
If this conversation comes up in a high school classroom and he tries to, say, hey, kindergarten through 12th grade, you can't talk about, sexual orientation or anything like that, then yes, maybe we have a problem. Because when you get into high school, yes, maybe people are feeling a certain type of way. Even maybe junior high. But, I mean, before you even have a sexual education class, we're sitting here worried about whether these people even fucking know what the hell. I'm at a loss.
Right. They're trying to conquer sex before kids are really asking about sex. And the funny part of all of this, in my opinion, is that they are saying that if a question comes up, they don't want to have to shame these children by telling them to be quiet with their question.
See, here's my thing.
If they have a question, tell them go ask their parents. I mean, if a child has a question about the Bible, y'all don't mind shaming him about that.
Even if the teacher just, and this is where I don't agree with the law. What the hell's wrong with the teacher just saying, well, not unfortunately, but little Bobby's two dads love each other and you can't help who you love. Keep it moving.
Right.
That's probably going to be a good enough explanation for somebody in kindergarten through third grade. They're like, oh, cool. And go back to playing fucking flipjacks or whatever the hell they do nowadays. Maybe it's on their iPad, but still. This is another bill that takes a non-issue. And I understand exactly why he did it, because just like the gentleman pointed out, I mean, the guy's trying to run for president. It appears. And it's one of those things that he's trying to fire up a certain base. But here's the thing. I mean, Manny, would you have a problem? Because I believe your daughter is in that age group, correct?
Correct.
If your daughter asked the teacher, hey, why does my classmate have two dads? And the teacher explained to her without getting sexually explicit, which I'm still trying to figure out how we get sexually explicit in this conversation. Would you have a problem having that teacher explain to her why Lil Bobby has two daddies?
I would not have a problem with it, because then I know she's going to come and ask us or mention it, I'm sure.
Right. Again, this law on both sides has no merit. Disney getting involved. See, I told you I was gonna bring it back into it. Disney getting involved. What the hell does Disney have to do with the damn thing? Go make some.
Because there are people in Disney that have said that they want to push the gay agenda across many more movies.
Which makes no sense. Again, if you say, hey, we're going to have this gay character in our movie, cool, whatever. Keep it pushing. If I don't want to watch it, I won't watch it. If I do want to watch it, guess what? It's there for me. Keep it pushing. Why do we have to call something a gay agenda? Like, what are we trying to say? That, hey, we're going to put our stuff out there, and if your child happens to have thoughts, then we're going to try to influence them into being a homosexual person or having that preference. Because when you say that you are going to push the gay agenda, quote unquote, in a Disney or another movie like such, basically what that reads to me is, hey, I'm going to try to influence through my art, I guess is what you could describe it as. I'm going to try to influence your child to become homosexual. We shouldn't be trying to influence these kids to do anything. We should be telling these kids, hey, if you are attracted to dudes, cool for you. If you're attracted to females, cool for you. We keep it pressing. People
This is supposed to be stories for entertainment.
Exactly.
Not tools to brainwash people in any direction.
Exactly. People are so hung up in how these things are being perceived. And again, like the most baffling part about this is Ron DeSantis doesn't trust his teachers in his school district to explain why, again, little Bobby has two daddies without getting sexually explicit about it. Like, come on now. This is mind-blowing to me. Mad Hawk, you're back.
And I think that some of that comes from individuals who try to push children into thinking one way or another.
I mean, that's true, but I don't think we have, again, just like I said, I don't think we have an influx of this, children in K through third grade committing suicide. I don't think we have a large flux of teachers who are saying, well, when Bobby and Billy get together, this is how that works out. And that's why why little Joe boy has two daddies. Like, we don't have that. No child, like I said, if you tell a child, well, because they love each other, that child's going to keep pressing. They're not going to ask, well, why do they love each other? Is something wrong with them? Like, you guys are applying logic that, later on, yes, they may have follow-up questions, and there's nothing wrong once they get to that maturity level of explaining and answering those follow-up questions. But for kindergarten through third graders, y'all are doing too much. I mean,
yeah, you're looking at up to 8 years old there at that point. I mean,
they don't
what 8-year-old or younger needs to be taught about sex?
Exactly. I agree. But again, like I said, my counterclaim is how many of these teachers are actually fucking getting into sexual stuff with kindergartners through third graders? Because if that's a problem, then we have a bigger problem than just, hey, they told them about gay people. That's a bigger problem if they're getting into sexual stuff at that age.
Right.
It's a much larger problem. Matt, do you see any need for kindergarten through third grade teachers in the state of Florida not to be able to explain to a child why their classmate has two dads or two moms?
Do I see any reason why they should need to or why they can't?
Why they can't, yes.
Like why they shouldn't be allowed to explain that?
So Ron DeSantis signed the Don't Say Gay legislation, which is basically banning kindergarten through third grade teachers in the state of Florida from being able to discuss homosexuality.
I mean, I guess, again, like it just, and I'm kind of joining in here, of course, and in and out, but kind of like what you all said, like, there goes the phone. I guess just really, I just don't need, like, I agree. I don't see a reason why they would need to discuss that in such detail with kids of that age.
Yeah.
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 Got me. I'll be right
Same
back.
thing we've been saying, you know, at 8 years old, teacher really don't need to be pushing sex of any kind onto children.
Exactly. We have a bigger problem if these teachers are out here talking about sex with these kids. That's a much larger problem than, hey, Billy Bob has two daddies. Like, that's crazy to me. And the fact that, again, that we're talking about how.
I honestly think the majority of this stuff came across when they started seeing some of the books that were being put into the library for the children that were pro homosexual.
Okay.
I believe that's where most of this started.
Were these books that were pro homosexual, were they overly sexual, or were they just like, hey, Billy loves Joe and that's okay? Like, was it innocent, or was it a little bit
Hold on, let me see what I can find.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, that's something that, again, if you're out there, kind of like we were talking about Disney earlier, if you're out there, you know, trying to tell people that, hey, you should be gay and you need to be gay, or you're not cool, or what have you, then that's a problem. But if you're out there just saying, hey, yeah, that's cool, Billy and Bob are getting together and good on them as long as they're happy. Big difference between the two. And that's my big line in the sand. Like, as long as you aren't getting sexual in these conversations or explicit in these conversations, then why should you? That's like, honestly, gay people can strike back and say, well, you know, I don't want you telling them why they don't have two daddies or two mommies. You know, it's one of those things that it's a double-edged sword. It's a law that isn't necessary. Like, it's extremely crazy. And it's an obvious ploy to set up his presidential run and appeal to the conservative base.
Right. But you also had the incident where they were asking the SCOTUS nominee.
Yeah.
What was her name?
Ketanji Brown
Jackson. They were asking her to what her definition of woman was. Could she define woman? And it was based on these books.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw that clip or not.
No, I didn't know it was based on, you know, that. But again, we're talking about a woman who is, you know, of an older age that, you know, hey, yeah, we can get a little bit more detailed. If we're marketing the sexually explicit material at children, then again, this is part of a bigger problem that we need to address. Because whether you're talking about gay sex, straight sex, sex, it's a problem when you're talking to, you know, 5 to 8 year olds. That's unacceptable. They shouldn't be exposed to this for quite some time. I mean, I'm hesitating to say junior high. I'm being a realist in the world and saying.
Well, here's a book. It's got a little boy with a shadow in a tutu doing ballerina. It says, "My shadow is pink."
What's wrong with that? To be fair, what is wrong with that?
Well, no, I'm saying that's the kind of stuff that would spark question. Here's another book that is a child holding a child embraced in a woman's arms. It says, "She's my dad."
So you're saying
reading age 3 to 7.
So you're saying this may spark the questions that DeSantis.
Right. This kind of stuff would spark questions about.
Can it easily be answered in a non-explicit way?
I don't know. That's what is contributing to the law. They're wanting to pull those books out of the reading level for 8-year-old and under. Get those books out of the third grade library.
I mean, again, I don't think anyone should say that, oh, these things are going to make my child gay. And, all of that. Like, if your child's, to me, and this is only my opinion, if your child's gay, they're gay. If they're straight, they're straight. Again, keep it moving. But, of course, my religion believes, certain things as well. But again, I don't think a book is going to make a child determine whether they like dudes over females. That's just an attraction thing.
And, well, I can see what you're saying. What I'm telling you is their argument. Their argument is that this stuff causes people or causes their children to start asking questions. And apparently they don't know how to answer it. So they just want to pull the book altogether.
Which, I mean, may be the problem. Again, and it's very interesting to me because, like you said, she'll come. Your own daughter will come back to you and say, "Hey, this is what we discussed in class today. Can you maybe explain it a little bit more?" And you're right. Just
right.
as we
because okay, my daughter is in kindergarten. Last year in pre-K, she had mentioned that her favorite color was green, and a little boy told her that green was a boy color, not a girl color. So she actually came home saying that she didn't like green anymore because it wasn't a girl color.
And that's crazy to me.
Yeah. We explained to her that color is color. There is no boy color or girl color.
Right.
Color is color.
Exactly. Agree with that. It's one of those things that, like you said, you have obviously it's like when in the late 90s when they were talking about video games and violent television shows. Like, obviously, you need to examine your relationship to your children as a parent if you don't think you can have these conversations with your kids too. Obviously, you're comfortable with having this conversation with your kid.
Here's another book with a little girl dressed in boys' clothes saying Jack, not Jackie. So there you have a period or a point where a child may read that and ask, well, why are they wanting to say that they're a boy instead of a girl?
That one, so the transgender part is a little bit, I don't know how, that one I can say I don't know how to explain, except maybe, well, Jackie feels like she's more comfortable as a boy. I don't know how
it feels good to be yourself. A book about gender identity.
I mean, and then again, the gentleman explained talking about these gender reveals, which I absolutely think are ridiculous because they keep getting stupider and stupider. But still, he talks about, oh, well, we just assume boys are going to be liking blue and girls are going to like pink. Well, yeah, motherfucker, because we can't ask the unborn baby in the stomach what color they like. I'm just saying. Like, some of these things are issues just to be issues that people have on both sides, and it gets fairly annoying, to be honest with you, that we have to talk about whether little Bobby should be able to ask his teacher about why his classmate has 2 dads or 2 moms.
Rainbow, a first book of pride.
Again, I don't want anyone who in later life, and again, I would like to say that I don't believe that anybody in kindergarten through 3rd grade is even worried about who they're attracted to, whether it be the opposite sex or the same sex.
Jacob's new dress.
Trying to ask them to have pride in being a homosexual person to a kid that doesn't even understand what homosexual means.
Did you hear that other one?
Do what?
Did you hear that other one? Jacob's new dress.
I don't mind the books, but again, we're creating a problem before a problem needs to be created, I guess. Like, again, if you want to have in junior high school, and again, I'm being a realist here, but talking sex with a junior high person isn't, the maturity's not there. But if you want to have somebody come in and say, hey, I'm gay, if you feel this way, don't feel alone. We have some things that, can help you out and not feeling ashamed of yourself and so on and so forth. Dude, do that crap. Go for it. I will applaud you. I will give you a high five. Like, awesome.
I think the biggest part of this started when some of the children started bringing these kind of books home, and then you had parents that were starting to lash out. Now you have a governor who is trying to appease those parents
that are crazy. Again, I mean, I'll use your daughter as an example. If your daughter brings home Jack, not Jackie, if she asks you a question, I'm sure you're going to explain that question in a level that is, perfect for her.
Right.
But you're not going to be like, how dare you read that book at my house? You know what I mean? This is parents that are not doing their fucking job, number one.
And you say that, I have taken that approach with a book in one of my children's classes when they were younger. I believe it was my oldest daughter who had gotten in trouble for calling another child a name, brought home a book that she got at the library that was Powerpuff Girls. And one of the Powerpuff Girls called another one a poo-poo head.
Okay.
So then I brought that up to the teacher. If we're going to get on to them about calling each other names, then we don't need to have books in here where the characters are calling each other names.
Very true.
Because, I mean, you're teaching it to them by allowing them to read that kind of stuff.
Very true. But I think me and you can both agree that if me or you or even your daughter brings home a book, that's not going to make them automatically think, okay, cool, I'm gay. Like, that's not going to automatically, I would hope not, force them to, say, okay, I'm gay. Like, I don't think that.
I don't see that happening that early, but I mean, I can see where some parents would say, well, you started putting it in their heads at this early age, so that whenever they got to their teenage years and they were really confused and nobody's really talked to them about it, it led them down a bad road.
Well, and again, I think that speaks to exactly what you're doing, and you're having conversations, and you're willing to have that conversation of, well, okay, you're confused, here's where you are, so on and so forth, especially when they get to that age. Obviously, that's not the conversation you have with a kindergarten to a third grader, but that's the conversation you have later on in life when they, are getting into the ages where they get attracted to whom.
And I really think that's what it comes down to, is the parents that are either scared, I don't want to say stupid.
I mean, you're not lying, though.
They're either scared or unintellectual enough to have these conversations with their children.
These are the same parents that are saying, hey, if my kid's a queer, I'm going to kick him out of my house and never speak to him again.
And they're the ones that are sending their child to school expecting for the school to teach them everything they need to know.
Exactly.
And they pretty much want a hands-off approach to it.
Exactly. They expect these teachers to do absolutely everything that they as parents need to do. A lot of people don't think you hit the nail on the head. A lot of these parents in today's society don't think that, they think that the church, for example, or schools should teach them everything they need to know, whereas everybody has questions. The church, I can go up to my pastor anytime and say, hey, got a question about this. You said this during your sermon or whatever, and he'll explain it to me. Yes, but that's not his job to, go through the whole thing with me every week if I have a question. That would be something, that I would go back to I'm a bad example because I'm an adult, so obviously I'd speak with my wife. But,
right. But first and foremost, you should study yourself, not sit there and wait for people to pump you full of information.
Exactly. Completely.
Whenever you hit a roadblock that you've studied everything that you can think of and still have questions, then I understand you going and asking.
Yeah, exactly. But for you to just automatically assume, oh well, you're going to learn that in school, or oh, you're going to learn that at church. No, you're putting too much pressure on these people, in my opinion. And you should be willing to have that conversation with your child. It may be uncomfortable, but guess what? You're a parent. That's your job, to raise your child into a productive human being.
Right.
That's my thoughts. I don't have any kids, so maybe it's easy for me to say.
Well, I've got 5, 4 of which are out of the house, and none of them have been to jail. So,
Ooh.
None of them have gotten arrested. No DUIs. Has anybody gotten a ticket even? A couple of tickets.
I was about to say, have they been brought home, especially in high school?
my oldest daughter came around the corner. She's like, so apparently she's had at least one.
Nice.
You want to come say hi to everybody, Ray? I'll come around this side. Let everybody meet my oldest daughter, Rain Marie.
What's up? The awkward pause.
Yes.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Spirit fingers.
Okay. Before we just go down a hole about spirit fingers, let's go ahead and move on to our.
Oh, I thought we were still talking about the kids.
Oh, are we still talking about the kids? Okay.
No, spirit fingers.
Oh, spirit fingers. Spirit fingers. Oh my goodness. This may need to become a recurring segment on the show. Spirit fingers. Oh Lord. We just turned talking about gay people to kindergartners through third graders to a laughing moment. That's the magic of the American Idiots show.
Right.
Okay.
Segue.
Let's go ahead and get into Russia here, and we have a story from CBS News.
Russian troops have withdrawn from around Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. But there are no celebrations in this country because what they've left behind is sickening. And we want to warn you that our report contains some deeply disturbing images.
In the town of Bucha, the streets are littered with bodies in civilian clothing. Some, with their hands tied behind their back, appear to have been executed. Others are buried in a mass grave. More than 300 residents were killed, according to the mayor. In the village of Kalinivka, Irina Kostenko says the Russians killed her only son, Alexei. The pain is so bad, she says. He was only 27 years old. She says she brought Alexei's body back in a wheelbarrow and buried him by herself in the garden, wrapped in a rug in a shallow grave. Showing a photo of Alexei as a child, she says, "This is my love, my sweetheart." On a highway outside Kyiv, Ukrainian officials say these images show the naked corpses of at least 4 women. They claim the Russians tried to burn the bodies. There have been several allegations of rape against Russian troops during this invasion. Ukrainian officials say they're investigating. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia of genocide, speaking on Face the Nation yesterday. "We are being destroyed and exterminated," he said, and this is happening in the Europe of the 21st century. The city of Mariupol has been besieged and bombarded by the Russians for weeks. Thousands may be dead, according to the United Nations. But the horrors there can't be counted because Mariupol is cut off. 17-year-old Ilona and her 10-year-old brother Milan made it out of the city on Friday with their father. We found them sitting silently at an evacuation center, apparently shell-shocked. There were constant bombing raids, constant explosions, Ilona told us.
Were there times that you thought you wouldn't make it out alive?
Yes, she said, but we tried to hold ourselves together. We tried not to panic. Russia's denied killing civilians in Bucha, making the extraordinary claim that these scenes were staged. The Russian soldiers who did this will likely never be brought to justice.
Despite those images and thousands of Russian soldiers reported killed, Vladimir Putin's approval rating has gone up to 83%, according to a recent poll. But Russian media is restricted in reporting the truth about what's happening in Ukraine, and many Russians rely on state-controlled news. Anne-Marie and Vlad.
All right, Holly, thank you.
So, Manny, at this point, and I know the claims are being made in, certain circles, and they're not being made as widely as I'd like them to be. But at this point, we need to start looking, in my opinion, at Vladimir Putin like we did Hitler, or like we do Hitler. Zelensky made a very good point. I mean, what is the difference between what he is doing, what Putin is doing, and genocide? We were so willing to go fuck up the Nazis. I understand.
No, we didn't get involved into World War II until we were bombed.
Well,
so
true.
You can't really say that we were so willing to go fuck up the Nazis.
But as soon as Japan bombed us, all of a sudden we were also going after Germany. We were waiting for an excuse. At this point, why wait? At this point, why wait? They're obviously not as well trained as us. I mean, they got beat by a bunch of farmers.
Right. But see, and you hear those kind of things. You hear the reports about the farmers that are turning these soldiers away. You hear the reports about it's just a bunch of kids that Russia's sending over. You hear the reports about these soldiers that are coming over and don't even want to fight. But then you see stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So which is it? I mean, is it a bunch of soldiers that aren't wanting to fight, or is it a bunch of soldiers that are trying to rape women and killing civilians?
Rape, pillage, and fucking do everything else. It's crazy. And at this point, I hate to say it, but right now we're forced to sit here and wait. That sucks.
And it's not just us. I mean, there's the entire, NATO.
You're right.
They can step in at any time. It doesn't have to be the United States.
You're right. So the question, even though we know that, again, I keep bringing this up. Everybody wants to talk about bringing war crimes against Vladimir Putin or charging him with war crimes. But we all know that George W. Bush was charged with war crimes back in Iraq, and he was actually convicted of it. And I'm sorry, but George W. Bush is still living his best life down on Crawford Ranch in Texas.
That's what I was going to say. What does that even do? Is
there anything more that we can do short of boots on the ground in Ukraine and more than obviously bringing war crimes against Putin?
We can arm the Ukraine.
And I mean, I think we're doing that. I'd like to see more.
I'm sure in a limited capacity we are. I think most of the stuff is going through one of the NATO allies, not directly from us.
Well, yeah, true. I think you said even though that that funding bill for the Ukraine and to get them stuff was most of the money was going to fucking South America or something, honestly.
Yeah.
Which is something that, again, needs to stop. We need to fucking help these people. We see the shit every day on our news, and it's depressing the hell out of everybody. Obviously, Zelensky last night spoke at the Grammys. I didn't get to see that, but I heard it was quite good. Zelensky hasn't been short on words.
Grammys, Face the Nation. I mean, he has really become a TV star.
If that man won, I'm willing to go to say, if that man wanted to be president of the United States, the fucking country right now would probably vote for him. because he's done such a phenomenal job leading Ukraine. But it's crazy to me that we're sitting here again with our hands almost tied in a certain thing, having to watch this, because you see where it was going up, and everybody was talking about Russia. It was like every moment of every day for that first month, and now you see it going down. But here's the kicker: it's getting worse. You're now coming in the 5-minute news segment is now, hey, there's a bunch of dead bodies in fucking Ukraine right now, just laying on the street. A lot of people think that the Russian soldiers put that guy on that bicycle to make him look like he was riding for some sort of sick entertainment. Like, it's getting worse. The other thing that was very, very discouraging to me is that, according to analysts here in the U.S., Russia's economy is rebounding despite the measures that we've taken to try to stop their economy. At that point, if Putin somehow manages to survive these sanctions, and at this point, like, he's going to come out looking like a hero to the Russian people. He took on the big bad U.S. All they were willing to do was sanction him, and guess what? He flipped them the finger and kept it moving. Like, that's going to be a problem too.
Right.
There's nothing else we can do to them. So now we've shut down the pipeline, I believe. I believe we shut down their pipeline finally. We shut down their fucking assets, and yet they're still rebounding. That's insane.
So you've got to ask, where's the money coming from then? Is it China?
China. Honestly, I would assume China. I would assume that there's some sort of backroom trade deals.
North Korea?
I'm going to be honest, North Korea. If I'm Biden, I'm looking as hard as I can for proof between a connection with China keeping Russia afloat right now. Because there's no...
Biden's busy with a lynching bill.
Yeah, true. There's no way, and protecting Hunter, which we'll get into in just a moment, but there's no evidence right now that we can tie him to it and start sanctioning the hell out of China. But there's no possible way in my mind that Russia's keeping themselves afloat on their own.
Right.
I cannot think of a way this is happening. So the only way that you can do this now is to go back and try to find out where the money's coming from.
When I heard that they made the payment on a lot of loans that they had coming up, I had a feeling that there's countries helping.
Unexpectedly.
Right. Definitely countries that are helping Russia.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of somebody who doesn't have any problem with money, Elon Musk buys 73.5 million shares in Twitter today, a week after slamming Twitter for its free speech. And we have a story on CNBC for this.
I think he should have board seats immediately. I know it's a passive stake. I know he's not outright calling for any particular change. I definitely think management should be engaging with him. Maybe they already have. And who else should have input into strategic direction and management of this company? Elon Musk has 80 million followers, and if he disappeared, I bet a great big chunk of daily engagement, at least among young men between the ages of 18 and 54, or whatever the demographic is, would literally disappear. So I hope they listen to him. I don't know that I'll agree with what he thinks they should do, but if somebody with 80 million followers wants to have say, and you have a board filled with people who don't even use the product, don't even tweet, which has been the problem with this company for 10 years now, why wouldn't you want to hear what he has to say? Do you want famous people to continue to come here and interesting people continue to engage? Or do you want them to keep disappearing and going off to Instagram and other platforms, which has been the trend in the last 5 years? So ask yourself, what's best? Probably best to listen to the power users, something that they've almost not done since the very beginning.
There are so many interesting things to consider here. Number one, his stake is now 4 times the size of Jack Dorsey, right? One of the founders. So That's interesting
Well,
in and of
Dorsey's checked
itself.
out.
I get that, but still, right? But still. And it's a single class of stock. So it's not like some of the other large technology companies that we have gotten used to talking about, where the founder has retained a large portion of control through a dual class. And I'm just wondering, and you sort of alluded to it by suggesting as your first comments that, oh, he should have board seats right now, whether a passive stake to begin with becomes something more.
I guess that'll depend on whether or not he gets bored with this, or whether or not they actually want to engage with him and listen to him. But I would tell you that when I scan the 13Fs and some of the other people that are involved in Twitter, Kathy's an example. I'm sure she wants to hear what he wants to do, right? She's a huge fan of Tesla and presumably Elon Musk's. So it's not as though he would have to do anything unilateral here. So if you pull out the passives, the Vanguards, the BlackRocks, the State Streets, and you ask yourself, who else on this list of 13F filers, who else on this list of large holders in this stock might be interested in a different approach to monetization, to how they deal with free speech, to centralization versus decentralization? Who else might be receptive? Pretty much everyone. The last time we talked about this, Judge, was in December. And I pointed out that take out the market cap growth because that's not relevant. Just in terms of gains for shareholders.
Okay, we're getting into a bunch of shit that people probably aren't understanding. But with that being said,
just real quick,
go ahead.
North Carolina just took the lead for the first time. They had started slow. They were down 7-0 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're leading 12-11.
Oh, North Carolina's going
and just got the ball.
Hell yeah. So with that being said, with all of that being said, Elon Musk buys 73.5 million shares. They're considered passive shares, which means he's not really, gonna be a big force, quote unquote, or looked at as a big force within Twitter. But do you believe that Elon Musk, somebody who controls one of the biggest brands in the world in Tesla, do you really think he's going to sit back and just allow business as usual to go on with Twitter, especially a week after slamming its free speech policy?
He will definitely have a sway on the people that are there. But I mean, the thing that's being pointed out is like they're saying, you've got people that don't use a product controlling the product.
Exactly.
So how can you make legitimate decisions? How could you look at people trusting what you say is best? And the way they pointed out that you have a lot of people in their boards that are leaving the same product that they are in control of for other platforms.
Exactly.
So what does that say for the product that you're supposedly controlling?
It's absolutely agreed. And the one person that could fix it is the guy who, like he pointed out, has 83 million followers on Twitter.
I wouldn't say he's the one person that can fix it.
True.
He is a person that could fix it.
I know there's an orange man that you think could fix it, probably.
What has he been tied to social media wise?
The only real thing that I've seen Elon Musk be involved in is Tesla.
Right.
Obviously, he gets involved with, he's done the SpaceX and all of that. But I think this is his first venture into Twitter. And I'm going to be honest with you.
So primarily manufacturing is his background. Great business mind in manufacturing. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to have a great business mind for a social network.
Very true. But I think that the timing speaks to the fact that he is going to try to pass an agenda to try to fix this issue that he perceives in free speech on Twitter.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Let's be honest here. Not only is it Twitter, there's a problem in Facebook. You can no longer say what you want, even though some people shouldn't be able to say what they want because, good Lord, but still, you can no longer say what you want on your own, Twitter account, Facebook account. And you actually called this, I believe, it was over a year ago. It was during the 2020 election when Trump got banned for his stuff. You even called it. You were like, this is going to become a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's become a monster where, even if you're spreading, you can't talk politics. We'll put it that way on Twitter.
Right.
Without getting a ban. You can't talk anything, whether you be deemed socially in the right or wrong. You can't do it. And this is a problem going forward.
Right. And this American Idiots podcast being on YouTube and Facebook, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get axed all of a sudden.
Hey, Zuck, I'm going to need you to not put us in Facebook jail, bro. I'm just saying. We ain't got the Facebook bail money yet. But no, it's going to be interesting to see how this goes forward, because I believe that Elon Musk is going to go from passive shares to, hey, looky here, motherfucker. Here's what we're going to do.
Right.
Because, I mean, again, when you get to a business level, a lot of people think that Trump is one of one. But what they don't understand is when you get to that level in that business, you have an ego. You have this ego about you, and you have this belief that you can do, anything you want. Look at any big successful businessman and tell me they don't have an ego. Warren Buffett has an ego. Vince McMahon has an ego. Any big multi-billion-dollar, what's up, Aaron?
There's Aaron.
Multi-billion-dollar industry, the head of that industry. Hell, Sam Walton had an ego, for crying out loud. And everybody
Walt Disney.
Do I now?
Walt Disney.
Yeah. I mean,
Martha Stewart.
Everybody wants to paint these people as these nice characters. I'm going to call them characters that they portray on TV. Trump just didn't give a fuck about having a public image, and he was just like, He wasn't afraid to tell anybody. But 99.9% of those people, I can guarantee you, Martha Stewart behind closed doors, when she's conducting business, she's not the smiley, hey, how you doing? So on and so forth. She's ruthless. You have to have
I'm going to bet she's more ruthless than Snoop Dogg.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Martha Stewart may bust a cap in some people if they fuck up her business. But you look at these things, and that's what's hilarious to me. People don't think that these people have this big ego and this big idea of themselves. But to get to the level that the Trumps, the McMahons, the Stewarts, even the Jay-Z's and all of those of the world, they have to. They have to have this self-confidence. And they have to, let's be honest, who are we to tell them about their business? Because obviously their ideas are working. It's one of those.
Right. But like I said, there is a difference in a manufacturing business versus a social media business. So Elon Musk is a showman. He does know how to talk up a product.
Exactly.
So maybe it will be good. Time will tell. I
mean, and I think you're right. Time will tell on this, because I think this is the moment where Elon Musk becomes, is either, hey, he's just another great CEO who, made a couple good products like Tesla. Or you become Steve fucking Jobs, which I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people want him to become the next Steve Jobs and think he will be. This is his test. If he can successfully, diversify his portfolio.
Right. I can totally see him doing that. He's buying into Twitter as it's falling because of things that he said. And then turning it around to make him a nice little profit. I mean, not exactly a dumb idea.
Here's the question I have. What's the over-under on how many Tesla ads we're about to see on Twitter? Just saying. Just throwing that out there. He might as well while he's in there.
Right.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. Hunter and Joe. Crap, where'd it go? There it is. Hunter and Joe's personal connection to the conflict in Ukraine and all this talk about a laptop with Hunter. And we have an interview that was conducted with Trump asking for a deeper look into this connection.
Former President Trump is publicly calling on Vladimir Putin to release information he might have on Hunter Biden, President Biden's son. Here's Trump in an interview with Just the News yesterday.
Why did the mayor of Moscow's wife give the Bidens, both of them, $3.5 million for them? That's a lot of money. She gave him $3.5 million. So now I would think Putin would know the answer to that. I think he should release it. I think we should know that answer.
So Trump is referring to an unsubstantiated claim made in a 2020 report by Senate Republicans focusing on Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine. At the time, Hunter Biden's legal team told NBC News that he had no stake in the firm that received that money, and his lawyers have consistently denied any wrongdoing. Putin has also pushed back, saying in 2020 that he was unaware of any business dealings between Biden and the widow of Moscow's former mayor. This, of course, is not the first time that Trump has asked Putin to dig up dirt on his enemies. In 2016, he famously called on Russia to find and release Hillary Clinton's emails. Trump's first impeachment centered on his effort to pressure Ukrainian President Zelensky to find incriminating information about the Biden family.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
Shut up. I didn't want to watch your YouTube channel. Anyway, so Manny, here's my thing. Number one, it's a bad look when you're asking Vladimir Putin, who we just compared to freaking Adolf Hitler, to do anything for you. Number two, do you think there's actual smoke to this? Because I do want an answer to that question. Why did the mayor of Moscow give, as President Trump so eloquently put it, the Bidens money? Like, that's a lot of money for you guys to like, everybody wants to draw these connections between George W. Bush and the bin Laden family in the lead up to 9/11. Like, why aren't we making these connections?
Well, there's definitely that, and there's the paintings that Biden did that sold for millions of dollars over there.
Mm-hmm. There's just a large amount of unanswered questions that, to be fair, I don't know if we ever get the answers to, but I think it's very fair.
I doubt it. I would have never figured that we would have gone this long with Hillary Clinton still being out.
Right. Very true.
I figured one of the first things that Trump would have done would have been to bring a lot of that stuff to light. It baffles me that nobody has really opened up any cases or really put the Clinton crime family even on Front Street. I mean,
the Clintons are the new mob, let's be honest here. But no, I mean, you make a very good point. The emails. And that's why I have a little faith that we're ever going to get answers to these questions. But the emails, 56,000 emails just disappear. We don't talk about them anymore. I'm sorry, Bernie. I want to know about her damn emails. Just tossing that back out there. It's something that is very disheartening because, yes, this is at this point, this is a national security issue.
In my opinion, it is.
Do I know?
In my opinion, it is.
Yeah, I mean, we have an active conflict where we're basically involved in a cold capacity. So we're basically in the Cold War again with Russia. We don't need to have any loose ends. I'm just saying, like, we don't need to be having Biden saying, hey, by the way.
And I think we need to know all of it. If Trump is associated with what's going on, Russia, we need to know. If the Clintons were associated, we need to know. If Bidens are associated, we need to know.
Because if anybody has.
Wow, all of a sudden it's just me.
Leave it to me to click.
There you are. Welcome back.
Leave it to me to click myself out of the podcast. But what I was saying is, if anybody has.
You were so upset, you just quit.
I did. If anybody has. Hey, you're acting like that hasn't happened before on this show. if anybody has any ties though to Russia and the Biden, or excuse me, to Russia and that whole situation over there, we definitely need to know. We should know. Again, I'm the guy that says, hey, if you're going to run for president or any sort of federal public office, we need to know what type of business dealings you're having. If you're having any dealings with Russia, guess what? Sorry, you need to cut those off, or you need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Again, we're to a point where this is the Cold War all over again.
Right.
It's a scary thing, but like you said, I mean, you wrapped it up in a nice little bow. I don't think we're ever going to get the answers we need, and we don't know. So here's my thing. We both agree that we think that Biden's been pretty easy on Russia. So naturally, the question is, are you going easy on Russia because your son has these business dealings and has business interests over there? Because if that's the
Right.
point,
Is it because they have business interest over there? Is it because Vladimir Putin has already told you, hey, if you come against me, I'm going to make sure the world sees this stuff?
And I mean, it's a very, very interesting thought. Because, if you're protecting your own hide over the American people, then we have a big fucking problem.
Yes.
And you don't need to be occupying that seat. And I will gladly see freaking Kamala Harris become president of the United States. I'm not happy about it, but hey, I don't agree with her, but at least she wouldn't have any of these clouds hanging over her head as far as her potential involvement in Russia. Okay. Final topic, and I think we're going to have some fun with this one. Has the NFL built an atmosphere that abusing women that makes abusing women okay? And we actually have a story based upon some news that came out of the NFL owners meeting this last week, some revisions to the what's called the Rooney Rule. So here we go.
How impactful is requiring a minority offensive assistant in this fight?
Well, they've essentially created a new position in the corporate world. Folks would call it a fellowship. It's something that's being sponsored by some other entity. And in this instance, the National Football League, and not necessarily by the owners' investments themselves. So I wonder the efficacy of this strategy long term. I think that it's a great first step. I do question, particularly when you look at the history of affirmative action in this country and its efficacy, if whether or not expanding the minority category in this situation to include women will help or hurt folks like Brian Flores, who, of course, we know sued the NFL earlier this year. We know that this is an outgrowth of this, and they've made a dozen changes to the Rooney Rule over time, including just last fall when they ensured that now coaches would have to interview 2 minority candidates for head coaching roles and 1 for other positions. And so I question if it's enough to just check that interview box, or if it really is about long-term change in the NFL.
Yeah, Angela, this is, first of all, so glad to be with you. This has always been my stance. There are 30 white owners in the NFL that really run this league, along with Green Bay, who is a committee, and Shad Khan, who is the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, who is considered a minority, is a minority owner in this league. But when you look at the overall arching problem with and I understand that these are supposed to be fixes or coaxes to what the issue is, it really boils down to those men, those women that are in ownership positions in the NFL to fix this. The onus should be upon them. That is what I have been saying for years. The league, we always say the league, the diversity and inclusion. And obviously, if you're a body and you're a representative of the NFL, you want to try to enact these things to create change and make this a more diverse and inclusive culture and give opportunities. But ultimately, what is at the heartstring of these owners? Do they really want to see diversity and inclusion in the NFL? It will always come back to that. I understand it. And I kind of operate off this mechanism, Angela, and you can speak to this after I make this statement. I've always believed that in order to change something where people have ownership, give an example. The owners own the mountain. The mountain is the place with all of the resources. Only the owner of the mountain can change how business is done. So I continually want to hear from 30 owners, 30 white owners. I want to hear from the ownership in Green Bay and Shad Khan from the Jacksonville Jaguars and tell me how they want to change this. As opposed.
Okay, so little bit.
How you gonna cut it off like that, man? It was right in the middle of his speech.
Because I can. And technically, they were going in a different direction too, past where I was actually looking at too. So I don't know if you could read the little headline at the bottom.
No.
But it also includes, so this expansion of the Rooney Rule in the NFL includes that the minority person upon the minority coach that they have to have on staff can or must be a woman. So now they are requiring these coaching staffs to become to include a woman. So my question to you, and I kind of posed this in the chat so that, and this is why I explained myself, Manny, for your question earlier. Is the NFL trying to put this out there as, hey, we're taking care of women, we're so up front and in front of everything and so on and so forth. But behind the scenes, they're really taking it easy. So Deshaun Watson, for example, we're waiting to see what happens. So obviously, he hasn't been charged by 2 separate grand juries for these sexual assault allegations. But I want to take it back to Ray Rice. Ray Rice basically ended up getting his career ruined, but really he only served a 2-game suspension. It was the rest of the owners that chose not to sign him for just completely fucking Mayweathering his female companion for the night. I don't know if it was his wife or girlfriend or what have you, but his female companion for the night in the fucking elevator and then dragging her unconscious body around. 2 games. Is the NFL harboring, even though they're putting out this front of, hey, we're trying to advance everything, we're letting women be coaches, yay! And I say that word, letting women be coaches, because I believe that's how they're going to spin it as, hey, yeah, we're doing so good. We're letting these females onto the coaching staffs. Are they putting out that public front, but behind the scenes, are they a completely different operation? I think they are. I haven't seen anything that has changed as far as how they handle these players abusing females.
Oh, you've got due process and stuff like that has to happen. You have laws, you have lawyers, you have defenders, you have all kinds of people that have their hand in that.
Mm-hmm.
So while you can sit there and point at the NFL and what are they doing, why is it that Ray Rice was free from prison to be able to play more games if a team would have picked him up?
So this has been years ago, almost
exactly.
Good Lord.
You're trying to equate what happened years ago to what they're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there was a time when people of color could not vote. And there was a fine line when this time they couldn't vote and at this time they could.
So are you saying that I'm not giving them enough credit for potentially making strides in a better direction?
They are potentially making strides in a better direction. You have to give them time to show proof of concept.
Okay. Now, what do you
The problem I have with this whole thing is, what does having a woman on the team change the team? What does having a minority on a team change the team? How does your team get better or worse if there's a minority or a female or anything like that? How does that change the makeup of your team?
So that's an interesting question. But here's something else I want to bring up is Brian Flores. Brian Flores was the head coach of the Miami Dolphins last year, and he now has a lawsuit. He's actually a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff. Go Steelers. Now, but he has a lawsuit currently against the NFL for the way he was treated while he was in Miami. A lot of people allege that the NFL will that the Rooney Rule is a joke, which is basically, like I said, basically they extended it to you must have at least one minority on the coaching staff, and you must have a female on the coaching staff. So this is how we are. But here's the problem: the Rooney Rule. One of the biggest knocks on the Rooney Rule was before this year, it was you have to interview a minority. So these coaches or these owners would put an interview on the books, and then they just come in and BS with them for an hour and, not give them any sort of legitimate shot at becoming the head coach. This isn't still a move in the right direction, though. Here's the thing. I can sit here and tell you right now that 32 white NFL head coach, 30 white NFL head coaches right now. Are you telling me that that those 30 individuals are better than any minority that is out there? I would disagree. There's a offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City right now that is one of the best offensive minds in football today. He's interviewed for head coaching positions. I think there is a problem that needs to be addressed here. Do I think that requiring you to hire a minority coordinator is the solution? No. I think that the gentleman who was speaking, when he was speaking, he made a very good point. The NFL doesn't need to control this. I think the problem is with these owners.
Right.
The owners are choosing not to hire minority coaches.
Right.
Which is a problem.
But you have several minorities in very high places that have the money to offer to buy a football franchise or to even start a football franchise.
Right. But here's the other thing, though, when you think about that. Being an NFL franchise owner isn't as, cut and dry as here. I'm going to hand you a check and I now own the team. You actually have to get approval from those same owners who it appears, I'm not going to call them, racist or anything, but it appears that they do not prefer to hire minority coaches. So you have to get the same, approval by, I think it's 25 of the 32 owners to get to actually be able to buy the team. So, I mean, I see where you're going, but I don't think it's the fix.
I would like to see that dumped out there, man.
What do you mean? The approval?
Let's see Jay-Z or Sean Combs actually go and try to purchase a team.
Do you think it would honestly bring a better light if one of them did attempt and then they failed by the vote?
Definitely.
Okay.
That would definitely be thrown out there.
I mean, and that's a very good point. I mean, again, it would definitely paint the owners in a negative light.
Exactly.
Especially considering the fact that, I mean, let's be honest. If you're an NFL owner or if you're somebody with a bunch of money, unless your name's like Donald Trump or we have some like serious dirt on you that you're going to make the league look bad, if you have the money, why the fuck should I tell you not to buy a football team? You know what I mean? So, I mean, it would be interesting to hear the reasoning behind it. But it's definitely, you make a good point. What the solution that is being brought by these changes to the Rooney Rule with these minority coaches, it makes no sense. By forcing somebody to hire a minority coach, you're actually like putting that minority coach probably in a bad position because they don't want you there or you weren't the top choice to be there. that's a problem too. Whereas you could just say, hey, here's the deal. We're going to require you to interview with a member of the NFL front office personally there to make sure that you're not, fucking messing
Rented.
around with the rule and trying to get around the rule. We're going to make sure that we sit there and you actually conduct an interview. We're not going to tell you who to hire, but we're going to sit there
Right.
and make sure that you actually give them a fair shake. That would make a lot more sense than, hey, you have to hire a minority coach.
Right.
But again, like the gentleman said, I think it comes from the owners. My owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, whose family the rule is named after, Art Rooney, is one of the current owners that actually has a franchise that actually has a African American head coach, and Mike Tomlin. He actually coached at A-State too. I found that out. That's pretty cool. But I think he wouldn't have a problem with it. But I mean, would Jerry Jones? Would the guy, I forget, I will keep wanting to call him Al Davis. Mark Davis is his name that owns the Raiders now. It's his son. Would he have a problem with a black coach? Of course they're going to say no.
Of course.
But it's interesting to see that, again, 30 out of 32 NFL head coaches currently are white. It's
right.
Optics are bad. We'll put it that way. So hopefully they'll get that fixed in the near future. And now we're to our American Idiot of the Week. This week, I'm going to keep it simple. Joe Biden, you're putting legislation out there with no teeth to claim a victory for an issue that, you haven't done anything for, even though you promised and got 84 million people to vote for you because they thought you were actually going to move the ball forward on this issue. What's the score?
32-22, North Carolina.
Ooh, North Carolina's starting to pull away.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, who you got?
Wayne Pankratz.
Okay,
Pankratz.
Pankratz.
Pankratz. Do what?
His name's Wayne, so this is already great.
Former Applebee's executive who sent an email to managers across several stores, saying that the high gas prices will force people back into the workplace regardless of the wages, suggesting that this would be a good time to cut employees' wages.
Oh.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's why he's a former Applebee's
That is exactly why he's a former. One of the managers that got this email actually leaked it so that the employees could see what executives thought of the employees. So yeah, at a time when gas prices are going up, they're trying to take advantage of people.
Wow. That is entitlement at its finest for damn.
So y'all enjoy Applebee's all you want.
I mean, then again, that's coming from the guy who decided to buy an SUV when gas prices are in an all-time high. What the hell was that? To be fair, the SUV gets like 32 miles to the gallon. So, I mean, I can't complain.
Not too bad.
No, not at all. Not at all. But, Manny, that's pretty much all I got for the night. Is there anything else you got?
Nope, I'm good.
Right on. Well, again, y'all, if y'all want to ever join in on the conversation, feel free to message us on the American Idiots Facebook page, and we'll try to get you a tryout. It was nice seeing Matt Hawk as much as we were able to tonight.
Good hearing from Aaron there again, even though he just popped in, said he was there, and then left.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's almost like he wanted us to think he was watching.
Right.
But anyway, for the Manic Hispanic, I am Money Mike, ladies and gentlemen. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody.